The first wave of coalition counterattacks had failed to break the Otomo front line, with battles in Wakasa, Tamba and outside Kyoto being decisively lost. A similar picture arose at sea, with dozens more ships sunk by Otomo fleets, while their coalition counterparts were yet to score a single kill, save for the scout ships the Otomo sent out with crews made up entirely of coalition prisoners. Still, where the first round of attacks had failed, perhaps a second round would succeed. "Who are you? I don't recognize you. Prove to me you aren't a spy." "My lord, I come straight from the battle at Kyoto. Observe the result of a near miss on my arm. And this, a message from Lord Kobayakawa." "Show it to me." "It does not bear the Shogun's seal. Nice try." "Shogun's seal? My lord has no such thing. But did you not hear me, lord? I speak of Lord Kobayakawa Chikaharu, the vanguard general of the Otomo." "Spoke thus you did. However, I am not subject to his authority, especially in such dubious circumstance. I receive orders directly from Lord Yoshiaki, and him alone. The man you claim as liege is here, demanding that I march east. Fight his battles. I was ordered to hold Setsu, and that is the entirety of my focus until the Shogun states otherwise. If you are true, then go tell Lord Kobayakawa that he should follow his own orders with equal discipline. If you are indeed a spy, then go tell your masters that I am here, awaiting a challenge on the field of battle, just as all men of the Otomo are. Lord Kurokawa, I will return to my Lord Kobayakawa and bear back to you his reply to prove my association." "You may do so, but know that I have opened my last missive that bears not the shogunal seal, and I have spared my last messenger who cannot explain its absence." Welcome to another episode of Barbarian Masters. I've just finished off fighting a naval battle where our Namban trade ship was just blowing up some bokoboyas, similar to what we've seen before, and I'm not really going to show these battles as we go forwards because there's one or two of them every single turn, so I'm going to try and cut them out for the most part, but I am going to show you some nice tactics we can do with the ships that we capture from these fights that I alluded to earlier. We can use them as scout ships. Since they get their movement points back after being captured and put onto your side, you can send them out to just see what's coming for the next turn so we can be ready for it. In this case, it looks like we've got Kitabatake ships coming in, and they've even bothered to build a ship that isn't a bokoboya, which is probably a first. We only tend to see trade ships and bokoboyas for the most part, so finally some new units going to start coming out onto the seas. And the other thing we can do with our captured ships is just send them to attack weak enemy ships, so they'll kill each other, and we're effectively making enemy troops just finish each other off. That's going to save me the bother of doing it. With this one ship we've got left over, I'll do a tiny bit more scouting down here towards Shikoku. Didn't find anything there, so we'll just get rid of the ship because we don't want to pay for its upkeep anymore. So that's all well and good. Now moving on, the Ikeda forces move towards Kyoto and go for an assault, and they're actually going to have an advantage on the balance bar here because they are joined by a Hosokawa army coming from the south. I actually can't quite see here, it's in the castle just behind the Ikeda guy. Interestingly, this battle features more than 10 enemy generals. They're really spamming the officers here, so that's going to help us out since they won't do too much in the opening phases of a siege battle. So let's see what we can do for our defense. They're going to be mainly attacking from a southerly direction. The Ikeda deployed all over the place, but the Hosokawa army will be coming from this direction, so we're going to have to defend south primarily. I'm not going to bother defending the outside of the castle or the capital here because it's very hard to defend. It's a very long border to hold if you try and hold the outer wall. So we'll hold the inner wall where we'll have a moat to protect us. Our long Yari Ashigaru will stop enemies crossing the bridges, and our archers will damage the enemy as they try and force their way through that choke point. Meanwhile, my cavalry reinforcements are coming in the top right hand corner of the map. I've got the horse archers currently attacking the nearest Ikeda infantry. I'm going to send all of the melee horsemen off to try and fight enemy generals. Also had a couple of garrison horse units here, and we found 3 Akita officers on the northern part of the map who just deployed on their own with no infantry support. That means we can just go right in for an attack. Units like these Yariki are just the hard counter to Generals Hatamoto, so we're going to do massive damage, and we outnumber them quite badly as well once a lot of reinforcements come in. So we'll wipe out all these guys. I think we killed the Akita daimyo really early on here, and we're going to kill all of the generals ultimately. They can't escape from this situation, so that's very nice for us. Not so nice, our horse archers getting caught against the line since I didn't micro them enough. The skirmish mode really can't be trusted. I had to micro those guys to keep them from getting stuck in the corner with those enemy infantry, but we'll get out in the end. And those enemy officers now just going down, as I said. We'll clear all of this up and then get out of the way before the few spearmen who reacted to that show up. At the same time, the enemy are starting their attack here on the southeastern part of the castle, coming in with archers for a charge against our spear wall. Pretty much the worst thing they could do with these archers, but maybe they didn't have line of sight from the other side of the bridge for some reason. This is a special map, so it's more likely to work in strange ways because it's probably less tested than the other siege maps. While they grind away there, our ranged cavalry will continue to just lead these infantry astray and make sure they don't take part in the battle, while all of the melee cavalry are now going to form up into this big horde, and we're going to go around the eastern part of the map towards the other corner because there are more Akeda generals just waiting around on their own, so now we can assassinate those guys as well. More troops starting to pour in to take part in the main fight here. The archers didn't do very well, but now some actual melee units might have more luck. And of course, while they're stuck here, our ranged units will just be pummeling them with all the arrows they can to weaken the enemy and make sure these fights generally go in our favour. It quickly became clear that most of the fight was going to be happening on the southwestern corner of our defensive position, so I'm now moving most of my troops to support this location. All of the Hosokawa army is attacking here, and a lot of the Akeda forces are here as well. I'm swapping our archers for gunners. Since the gunners need direct line of sight, they need to be on the wall here to shoot down into the melee, and the archers will shoot over the top. So now what we're going to see is pretty much the rest of the fight encapsulated here. It's just going to be our limited supply of melee units trying to hold the enemy on this bridge while we use all of our ranged units to do as much damage as we possibly can, and we just have to hope that's going to work because we can't do much else.
Their camp is unguarded, just as Sugatsura predicted. How did he know it would happen like this? Raise the signal banner! The cavalry will slay the enemy leaders and trap the enemy inside the palace.
General, our company, the bridge, reports heavy casualties. Support is needed.
Send all the Ashigaru to the bridge and have all archers target that position.
Lord, the formations are broken. We cannot hope to target only the enemy in that brawl.
I know, but there isn't another way. They're 10 times our number. Sacrifices must be made. Now order it!
Yes, my lord. Runners, gather here.
Lord Yoshiaki wouldn't hesitate for a second to do this. These would be his orders were he here. Did he really feel nothing? Or is it just... In situations like this, you must not feel anything or you will fail. The victory that feels like defeat. That's what Sugatsura calls it. Another trick he learned from the Nanban? Or was it from the heart of our lord?
Soon we get the result we're looking for. Our missile bombardment leaves the enemy in panic and they start fleeing away from the fight, many of them being killed on the way out. But still more enemies in there to persuade, so the rain of arrows and shot will continue, now with very few of our troops actually left alive to hold the enemy in place. I tried to get some of my units out of there because the damage was so severe. We were about to lose a full unit of Longyeri Ashigaru, so by getting them out with even just a few of their troops still alive, that will keep the unit intact and it will regenerate after the battle. So if we play it very carefully, we can actually do this without taking any losses in the long run. And as you can see here, the last dregs of the enemy force are now starting to leave, and many of them being killed as they go, but plenty also escaping because we have so little stuff left there to block them escaping. They are able to get away with it. At least the majority of the enemy army was defeated in that brawl. Now it's just a case of taking out their generals, who would have come in to fight themselves in the melee, but our marauding band of cavalry is going to find them first and go in for some nice favourable fights. All of our cav are exhausted from running around the map, especially because it's snowy conditions, which makes running and regenerating stamina harder, but still their advantage against the enemy is so large that they should be able to just hack through all these generals, and they're also going to be low on morale since their army has just been defeated. So once we kill a few of their guards, they'll try to leave, they will fail, and all of those officers will go right down. This battle is won, a nice decisive victory with substantial losses taken on a few units, but overall our army still in good condition, and we were fortunate enough not to lose any full units as I had hoped, so we will be able to get our frontline infantry back over time, and the same cannot be said for the enemy. Both of their armies have just been completely trashed in that attempted assault. Lots of kills for our archers in particular, as you might expect. They were very well protected, so took minimal to no losses and inflicted hundreds of casualties throughout the brawl. Very good stuff. So with those armies defeated, we will be able to actually take advantage of the enemy's temporary weakness. There's a monk demoralizing my troops here in Tamba, but all the same, they're going to have to move out and take part in a battle because we want to attack the Akita castle just to the southwest. In an annoying twist, they can't quite reach it, so they end up just camping outside. But I can go find a unit of horsemen from over near Kyoto, and they can make it all the way over to start a castle assault. Now our infantry will reinforce, so they'll still be able to make this attack. In effect, a nice positive balance bar. Down the enemy goes. So now the Akita clan will be wiped out, and this is a very strategic capture for us, because now the amount of border we have around the capital directly has shrunk quite a lot. The same for Setsu. Our front line is much more consolidated, and it's a nice moral victory to have another clan go down after they declared against us. Now I also noticed there were lots of enemy agents around the capital. Ordinarily I could just kill them with these geisha, but with the financial situation being as it is, I'm going to hold off. We can't afford to take out these agents, so I'm going to try and tolerate whatever antics they'll be getting up to, and that will probably only get worse and worse as more clans send their agents to harass us. Now though, it's the start of a new turn, and that means it's time for naval battles. This was a surprising one. I was going after this Miyoshi fleet, and it turned out there were 3 other fleets right next to it, so it's a big coalition navy. Certainly something we need to get rid of. The game seemed to be frozen for a while. Eventually a fight was initiated. I think the game was as confused as I was as to why these units were invisible previously. But anyway, it's just loads of bow koboyas against our fleet that has tons of Nanban trade ships in it. So this fight's going to be very similar to the ones where you're just fighting one enemy fleet, just longer effectively. The enemy can't pose very much of a threat. Although that said, with so many ships and so many fire arrows available to them, they can start much more substantial blazes on our boats, so they're more likely to inflict damage that way. However, we have so many cannons that we can deplete the enemy pretty quickly, and as you can see here, a lot of them just got stuck on our ships trying to get around them, and all of the husks of the defeated ships also blocking their path, so there wasn't much the enemy could do after the start of the battle was over and they'd lost their first wave of ships. Now it was just a case of hunting the enemy down, moving my ships to try and get good lines of fire, and most probably inflicting friendly fire on myself once the battle lines got all messed up. But still, things went okay. You can see one ship is very substantially on fire, but we were fortunate in that it was not destroyed or even really damaged by that fire, so that's all good. Here was a mistake I made though. I clicked end battle, and as you may recall from early in the series, if you just end a battle while you have Nanban ships in your fleet, the game goes ahead and deletes some of their crew for some reason. So now, in particular, our big Nanban Karek just lost over 100 crew members, and as they lose crew, they'll have fewer guns to use in battle. Even though it says they still have their guns, they just won't be able to fire them. Anyway, at least the enemy fleet is now dealt with. Major casualties for them, of course, a couple of ships just sneaking away, and now I'll use the ships that I captured there to pursue them, since we can just kill both sides effectively in this battle, and make sure we don't have too many people on our payroll, which is the main goal here. Now, I wanted to test this whole auto-resolving thing with these ships once and for all. Here's the easiest possible naval battle we could ever imagine. A half-dead Bokuboya, and yes, we lost hundreds of crew in auto-resolve, so it really doesn't work. I have to do all of these fights manually to the very end, just to make sure we can keep our crew alive. Now I've paid the price here, I'm going to have to send this fleet back to docks and somehow try and get together the money to replenish its crew and repair the hulls. And of course there's still a whole load more fleets for us to hunt down and attack throughout the rest of this turn.
Roma? Who is Roma?
Not who, it is a place. It is where the Holy Father Pius IV resides, and where from he has written you this letter.
Who? Let me... This letter isn't in my language or yours. What is the meaning of this?
It is Latin, the tongue of the mighty Romans who first took up the mission of spreading the Lord's word to all corners of the earth.
Never heard of them. What good is this to me?
I'm sure one of your ministers will be able to translate its meaning.
So you can't?
The word of God is not for the unordained to understand in its raw form.
I thought this was the word of Father Pius.
Pope Pius IV, please be respectful, my prince. His word and the word of God are one. He rules you and me both. This message is not to be taken lightly.
There are those who say that the Heavenly Father is beyond our comprehension.
This message would fall as evidence in support of that.
Tell me more of this Roma. What is it like?
It is the center of the civilized world, my prince. Palaces new and old stand side by side, gilded, fair-scented, and blessed by the light of the Lord. There a man of God is at home, at peace, and can enjoy all the fruits of the divine realm his Father has made for him.
Sounds rather delightful. Perhaps I should endeavour to see it for myself.
As we move into the next turn, the Hosokawa seem to make another move towards Kyoto. They didn't bring enough troops to actually attack it, so I don't know where they were going, but whatever the case, they are ambushed by our reinforcement troops who were just sitting in the woods to the east there, so now we can quickly get rid of that small army, including the death of an officer, so that's pretty handy. Now the Hosokawa have virtually nothing left. That's one of the neighbouring clans to Kyoto out of action for a bit. As we reach spring, we've got some bad news coming from the enemy's ninjas. Not only are they sabotaging our buildings, I actually clicked through without even reading there, but eventually I discovered that they've tried to assassinate Kobayakawa. He was only wounded, but it does mean he is now gone from the battlefront while he recovers. So that means our army is leaderless and is more vulnerable to attack right now. We can also see attack at a geisha coming in, so there's risk that our own agents are going to be assassinated pretty soon. We really need to assassinate all of these agents hanging around Kyoto, but lack of money is still a bit of a concern. Before looking into that some more, I wanted to take a look at this Miyoshi army. You can see it's bypassed our front line. It was beside our front line previously, and I think it hid during a couple of turns in the forest just to the north of Setsu, and has now broken out and is running to the west, away from our defensive line. So we need to pull back and send someone after them to try and fight them. I wasn't quite sure how to go about that, so I put the decision off to come and take a look at Sugatsura's situation. With him, I'm going to remain on the defensive for this turn, but I'm going to try and hide all of our troops outside of the castle so that the enemy might be baited into coming over here, where we can then fight them as defenders to bring the enemy down. Sugatsura is technically still not allowed to go on an offensive thanks to Yoshiaki's rulings, but we might have to just throw that out the window soon enough. Now, with Kurakawa, I didn't want to send him back to fight the Miyoshi. I was pretty sure I wanted to advance with him. There's a chance here to take Osaka Castle from the Saika because they don't have a garrison inside it, and while loads of different armies are all in reinforcement range of it, This could be a chance to do the classic rapid siege assault where you just capture the castle before the reinforcements really join the battle, and then we'll just have the castle and can defend that instead of the river crossing. I'm going to come back to that also in a second, because first I did want to deal with these Miyoshi. I was able to just gather up all of the reserves I had in the area and send them after these guys. Unfortunately, they just ran away when I challenged them to battle. At least that's a good sign that our troops here can overcome them. After some fiddling about here, I eventually did realise we can still attack them with both of these armies, so we can get the battle that we wanted in the end, and that balance bar's nice and far in our favour, so I'll just auto-resolve this since it's otherwise a pretty inconsequential fight. At least now our back lines are secure and we can go back to defending just a nice stable front line, and quite a short front line as well, so that's going to make our life easy for now. No problems in taking those guys down. Those armies won't replenish because they have no general, so I'll have to try and get them in castle soon enough to get the troops they did lose back. Now I am going to go ahead and kill the most senior of the enemy agents hanging around Kyoto, just in case they get up to no good once again and we are successful in taking him down with a geisha. I would just do it to everyone I see, but as I said, we want to save a bit of money. At least we're not losing money anymore thanks to me disbanding various units and ships across the map. Now I'm actually going to bring Yoshishige up towards the front line because really there's nothing much going on in Western Honshu. I don't think we're going to be naval invaded because we have good control of the seas and can monitor the ports on Shikoku, which is where naval invasions are most likely to come from. So because of that I'm going to take a risk and just have more forces near the front line. Now after skipping over tons of naval action that also took place this turn, I'm coming back to this, the attack on Osaka, and I did want to just do the rapid assault and try and capture it as I mentioned, but what I found when I attempted to do this is that it's actually impossible. The capture point on this map doesn't work. There is kind of something there on the ground as if you can capture the Tenshu, but you can't in actuality. This is a custom map added in as part of the Master of Strategy mod, so I'm really just showing this to show off the map. It is a very wonderful castle and hopefully we'll be able to fight here in a more serious capacity soon. But because this battle had effectively failed and it would be very bad news to lose this army now due to just not knowing a sneaky rule of the game there, I actually gave myself the chance to save scum out of that and just didn't make the attack and nothing happened in the end. So now in the next turn, Uno has almost made it back to our capital and Kobayakawa has just recovered from his wounds there, so Uno will be able to pick him up and take him back to the front line, along with various other troops including Terada, who I'm preparing to send to go and support / replace Sugatsura. Not enough money for guards, is that what you're saying? Not for guards who can be relied upon, my lord. Those provided by your son had previously sufficed. Ah yes, the girls of the night. It seems they leave pockets empty from the poorest farm to the halls of the Shogun. I was only using their martial services, lord. I don't care what you were doing with them. We need to get you back into action before that lunatic Kurokawa decides it would be sufficiently glorious to charge off into enemy ranks unarmed. There was a rumour recently that he'd attacked Osaka Castle and lost all of his men. Next time I fear it shall be true. I must agree, lord. The fighting around the capital will start in earnest as campaigning season begins. But there is another option. Sugatsura? Yes, my lord. He is but days' ride from Kyoto. I think he would rise to the challenge well, and he deserves the honour of trying. I decide what he deserves, General. He deserves another few years as an attendant. You will sail to him with General Terada and ensure that he is transferred onto the ships for the return journey here. Yoshishige has decided that God demands he fight on the front lines, and I intend not to stop him. Sugatsura must take his place in Aki. I will see to it, my lord. Ensure you do. I trust the fate of my family to no other man, General. We were able to take down the enemy geisha before she arrived to presumably do the same to our geisha, so that's good news. And we're also going to take down this ninja here, and with him gone, now all of the agents around the capital have finally been gotten rid of, and you can see our income's looking a bit better now, so we're in a better position to stop more agents as they come in, which will most likely be happening as all the other clans slowly send their resources our way. Now that the castle that used to belong to the Owaki is under our firm control, we can move units out to start defending the crossing point from Kyoto. And with that in position, we really have our frontline area well locked down. We've got armies all over the place, and all of the choke points that the enemy will have to go through to enter our territory are now guarded. This is really the position we should have been in as Realm Divide started ideally, but we finally got to it now. And adding to our power will be the arrival of Yoshishige, who can add his forces to the defense of Kyoto. This will not only allow us to defend effectively, but may allow us to go on the offensive soon to try and start clearing out some of the enemies nearby. The fleet that ferried him over here is going to act as a naval blockade, stopping anyone from going to the seas east or north of Shikoku. That will protect us from naval invasion and just generally be annoying for our enemies. In Bungo, Kobayakawa is loading up with a few choice units to move on up towards Buzen, where he's going to now receive additional units from Terada's army, including Terada himself. I needed to give mostly melee units here because I've got tons of range stuff at the moment, and this will form a new stack for us to take up to the front line towards Sugatsura's position, sailing along the northern coast of Japan, hopefully not meeting any resistance along the way, but it's going to take a while to get into position. Now at their destination, the fleet that's already there is just clearing out some Azai boats that were nearby. We're going to try and disrupt them from building up a proper fleet in the area. And of course we need to continue attempting to repair the fleet using what money we can. Going to take a while to get it all back together. Going to get rid of this Bokuboya because it's just completely useless and we really need to save the money on things like that. As for Sugatsura and his forces, they failed to draw the Azai into an ambush as I planned, and really they're ready to move out again, so I thought we might as well just go on the offensive, even though Sugatsura is supposed to be holding the line here. There's actually a pretty good opportunity to do it, because the Azai have an army outside of their nearby castle. So by attacking that army, we can draw the big stack in the castle out for a fight and potentially weaken it so much that taking the castle will then be easy, and we can just sit in that and see what happens. We do have to be careful because there are lots of other armies nearby that can retaliate, so we need to do this with minimal losses. After a bit of fiddling around with our reserve in Wakasa to get the army composition that we want and to maintain public order back there, we can move out and get the battle we were looking for. A pretty even affair. It's about 1.5 armies on each side, but we're going to have the forced defender's advantage because of our cannons, and hopefully we can use that to manipulate the enemy into losing far more troops than they would do otherwise, and we will start off the next episode with that battle. The critical task of keeping the sea lanes open for foreign trade was progressing as planned, with the number of coalition attack boats sunk reaching triple figures, and the number of Nanban traders departing with freshly captured soldiers from the front lines picking up again. This trade provided a vital lifeline to the Otomo by paying for their armies to remain in the field month by month, and was itself the method by which additional soldiers and weapons of European origin could be brought into the war. Successful in the defence, the Otomo war machine could tolerate a greater challenge, to not just resist the torrent bearing down on them, but to wade towards its source, swords drawn and match cords lit. That's it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to the OfficiallyDevin patrons. So we'll be seeing if we can push that front line forwards as we throw all our eggs into that particular basket in the next episode of Barbarian Masters.